So much.
Yes, voice choir. We're going to now down market, and then we'll continue with the program. Hoorah.
Yes, it's flipped. Huh? It's flipped. It's flipped. Amém. Amém.
Please, everyone who hasn't washed yet and wishes to make your way to the washing place.
So forget it for next time. I'll send this to you. WhatsApp, yeah? I'll send it to you. Oh, the whole thing regularly? Yeah. Just the link. I'll send it out to you. The code that give us another.
חיים, ברוך שהחיינו וקיימנו והגענו לזמן הזה, חיים. On a very simple level, it's the first time in several years. It's the first time in several years that Anash has been able to come together. Biom had a smell it. I recall when 50 years ago, when we were celebrating Yod Aleph Nisan, that's Ha'tshpim, and that was the first time my Melamed introduced us to the term Yom HaBohir. I was about 11 years old, and what does it mean, Yom HaBohir? The day which is a clear day. What can be a more Yom HaBohir than Yod Aleph Nisan? A day of clarity in a confused world, in a misguided world. And we were zoche in our generation, the Rebbe, to give a sense of guidance, a sense of direction. That's the Yom HaBohir. And that is what we're celebrating tonight. Very special Yovel, which we'll hear from our speakers. Before introducing the speakers, I'd like to say a shekayach to the Detzel, who is inspiration for activities for Anash around London. Shekayach to the catering department, to Avi and Mrs. Gollum for having prepared such a beautiful spread, to the boys who laid the tables. And with this, I'm going to ask our first speaker in this room to kindly agree. He wanted to have a representation from various parts of London, and so he was so Simon kindly agreed to say a few words, and so please do yourself.
ניסן חיים, רפואה שלמה, ושרה בהצלחה.
want to give over. I have practice every week. I learn a mimer that the Rebbe said. I try to do it seriously. I want to give over some points, simply some points from the mimer that I heard recently. It's a mimer from the year 1984. As Yaakov made us the Yaakov, Shabbos Agadol mimer. So the Rebbe asks very often, he speaks about the Ben. What is Ben? What is Ben Chava? Ben Chava, we had the 4 sons, and we know the Torah addresses 4 different types of kids, and one of them is the type that asks the question of the Ben Chava. What is that question? Etc., etc. What are, so there's all the Farshim and the Rebbe and my mom, they want to know what is he asking, what is bothering him. And often, in this mimer, the Rebbe explains the following. We say that also with the Russia, we say that the Russia says Eschem, he excludes himself, he says you, and we say it's terrible, he excludes himself from the people who believe in Hashem, who believe in miracles. He denies the fundamental principle. Here also, the Ben Chacham says Eschem about certain things. He says Elokeinu, our God, but he still says Eschem. So what is he differentiating? So the Rebbe explains there's many places that he's asking there's a difference between the way religion worked, Judaism worked, the relationship with God before the Torah was given in the days of the patriarchs, the Avos, and the way that it works after Matan Torah. The way it worked before was that the main relationship with Hashem was spiritual. Meditation, people get into the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the lofty people, they get into a lofty state and commune with Hashem that way. After Mitzrayim, Golos Mitzrayim, Tzias Mitzrayim, Matan Torah, the main thing became actions. So he wants to know what changed. What is this business with actions? And there the Rebbe spins it in 2 ways. He said on the one hand, it's because the Avos had an advantage over what happened afterwards. And it's also, on the other hand, that same advantage, which means a disadvantage of the people afterwards, the Rebbe flips a disadvantage into an advantage. And that's the hallmark of what the Rebbe does. The Rebbe says, what you think is a problem is really an opportunity. What you think is a problem is really a solution. And what is it? What does he say? He says the Avos, they were able because they were called what's called a Merkava. They were totally selfless, totally dedicated to Hashem, without any self-interest whatsoever. They, through the power of their own spirituality, their own psyches, their own selves, were able to have a real communion with Hashem. He said people aren't on that level. We're not totally selfless. We can't do that. We need Hashem to give us His specific instructions and tell us His things to do, and then we do those actions. But with our spirituality inside of ourselves, we would never make the connection. Okay, that's the advantage of the Avos. But what about the advantage of the Banim of us? What is the advantage? How does the Rebbe flip it? So he says that actually, you have to wonder, why did Hashem create us with all these challenges, sort of people who find total selflessness difficult? Why did He make us feel ourselves in the first place? This Hashem was looking specifically to be made to be have a relationship with something that was distant from Him, something that is low, something that isn't selfless, something that has itself. So really, that's Hashem's ultimate desire. Hashem's ultimate truth is to have something that's not selfless, something that is itself, something that is physical, that's caught up with the physical reality. And that thing should come into a relationship with Hashem. That the others didn't do. That's what we do. We had to go through Mitzrayim and Matan Torah in order to attain that. And the Rebbe even shows it in with the little gematria. He said that we know that there in the Torah there are 613 mitzvahs. You add to that another 7 mitzvahs to Rabbanan. That's a total of 620, which is a gematria of Keser. Keser is, when we speak about Kabbalah, it's the first projection of Hashem. It's the first, it's Hashem reaching out from His infinity, reaching out to us. But Keser, he says, has 2 parts to it. One is Hashem's inner drive, inner motivation, what Hashem is looking for, and what it means to Hashem, Hashem's inner pleasure from what He's projecting. the second thing is the way he accommodates that, the way he shapes it to reach something outside of him. So if you look at what it says in the Mishnayos, what every tzaddik, what every great or Talmud Chacham will get, what every great person will get in the hereafter, in the next world, which is a spiritual thing, he said he will get shy oilamos, 310 worlds. Now, 310 we know is half of Kesed. It's half the Gematria. 310 is half of 620. So which half are they going to get? They will get only the lower half. Spirituality can absorb only the lower half of what Hashem really wants. Spirituality, that will get, and that's what Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had. They had the lower half, the way Hashem is already shaping himself, not in his own terms, but shaping himself for the other. However, but when we do mitzvahs ma'asiyos, with all the 613 plus the 620, we actually are touching, Hashem is sharing with us his inner truth with us. So that's really the disadvantage, that with our own spirituality, we're not selfless and we can't commune with Hashem. It comes an advantage that we bring the fullness of Hashem's will and Hashem's meaning out. We touch something ultimate. And the Rebbe goes even further. He says this is even an advantage to mitzvahs over Torah. The Torah, we say, is Hashem's wisdom, but the mitzvahs, the 620, that's Hashem's innermost will, and even beyond will, it's Hashem's innermost pleasure. Okay, so now I want to take a step back for a second. This is like the first half of the points, one of the main points of the first half of the mimer. The question is, the Rebbe made a switch there. He made a fundamental twist. He took a problem, he took our lowness, and he made it into greatness. And that's what he's been doing with us for all these years. I mean, he's looking at the bottom and he's saying, don't be down on yourself because of it. Actually, you have the greatest opportunity. So how does he do that? He said he valorizes the load and makes the problem into the solution. How does he do that? Because it's true that we are Megushim, we are physical people. We are not selfless people. But unto ourselves, if we would just be free-floating physical people, people who are self-interested, that would be a problem. But if we look at it in light of Hashem's meaning and Hashem's purpose and what this means to Hashem, that switches everything around. So when we look at ourselves, take a step back, I have my agenda, Hashem has his agenda, the two don't meet. Then at that point, these things become big problems. So if we can step beyond separate agendas, we say, what does this actually mean to Hashem? Everything becomes turned around. So that's the basic shift in perspective. I think that the Rebbe holds out. We can see ourselves differently. With this, I want to speak about a friend who tragically passed away. He was a special person, but he didn't realize that he was a special person. In fact, he was told by his mashia in yeshiva that you're a behemoth. And he went around for the rest of his life thinking that he's a behemoth, despite all the great things that he did. And I think it was somewhat of a handicap for him, thinking that he's a behemoth. Now, the question is, well, what are we behemoths? Are we not behemoths? What's the story? Going to Kuda, the answer to this, one of the Ger Rebbes, I don't remember which one, put it in one word. He was getting together with another great rabbi, and his Hasidim were pushing to go to see what was going on and hear what was going on. And the other rabbi said, chayas, animals. And he said, he added one word, chayas hakodesh, holy animals, holy living beings. So with that one shift, yes, it could be chayas, but if we're looking at it from the point of ourselves, it can be chayas. But if we're looking from the point of view of Hashem, and what Hashem wants out of it, we can be holy animals. But Rabbi Zalman Sidak from Edgery told me, when I was speaking this case over with him, he told me actually it's a Gemara in the Doran, Pei Aleph, Amud Aleph. I wasn't aware of it. So he said, why is it not common for Talmidei Chachamim to have their children end up being Talmidei Chachamim? There's a list of answers, and the one answer is Because they call human beings donkeys. They took all people and you're a behemoth. So it's actually obviously it's not the way, it's not the root, and it's certainly not the Rebbe's root. You don't see the Rebbe going around calling people behemoths. But the question is, maybe it's true, maybe we are behemoths. You look at Tanya, and the Rebbe says in Tanya, Tes, Shenefesh Achayunis, Amachaya Azuf, Hivasakpa, the Toldasa Believi. So when the Nefesh of our animal soul is full force inside of a person's heart, that is a person, the animal soul is a person. So well, maybe it's right, maybe that is true. While Nefesh like he's going more as far as the divine soul, we also have a divine soul. Maybe that's the main thing. But about the Nefesh, because it says Neshama Shnasakli, the soul that you put into me, that's pure. That's not me. That's something you put into me. You flash out the matzmei, and then on a shema and a benini regular people. That's not. Maybe it's maybe true. Maybe we are basically animals. On the other hand, you see how Rebbe Tanya in other places. It says true. Maybe there is something animalistic about it. On the other hand, it says Obana Macharta, Nikolam Mulashain, and Perik and he says, what is that? Hashem, you chose us from all the nations and all the tongues. What is that referring to? It's not only a guf agashmi, but the guf achumri. It's the body that not only is physical, but it's actually choimer, it's material, it's materialistic. So Hashem is choosing, yes, there is something animalistic, but on the other hand, Hashem has a special kavod. He wants that. That's what he wants. That's what he's looking for. You see also Perik Kuf Gimel. He speaks about how through doing mitzvahs, our physical limbs or our physical body become a merkava to Hashem. So on the other hand, are we behema? But maybe the healthier way to look at it is not to tell someone or ourselves, I'm a behema, you're a behema, but saying, you're a whole person. The whole person is complex. He has many parts to him. One part, maybe even for a vanity, maybe the most primal part of the person, and the first instance we have includes the behema. But that behema is Hashem's behema. Highest of praise. Hashem has a kavana for that behema. What could be Hashem's kavana for a behema? Or for us to be self-centered, what is that relevant? So, and the Rebbe deals with this question many places, many times, and he says, what would be the most fitting? I don't know the right word. What could stand in a real relationship with Hashem? Something has had some similarity to Hashem to stand in a relationship with Him. If something is batal, is nothing, that can't really relate to Hashem on the core level of Hashem. Something feels I am. Yes, Anibra. Then at that point, if something Hashem, that's the Hashem inside of us. The Rebbe says, he says, Hayesh Anibra, Hu Hayesh Amiti. It's okay. So if we can look at ourselves in that way, say yes, we have issues, we have animalistic side to us, we have self-centered, we're not like the others, but this is Hashem's animal, this is Hashem's kavanah. And I think the Rebbe gives us this perspective on our own animal. It's not to beat yourself up, not to become depressed over it, but actually, you know that it's there. You know that it's a challenge. You know it's an opportunity. It's an amazing opportunity. It's something unique. Now, the Rebbe goes even further. The Rebbe says that not only is our yesh hanivra, our sense of our own selves, the only real receptacle for the yesh hamiti, for the true thing that is, our sense I exist, is the only true receptacle for that thing that really exists. And the angels that come in between are not really, they can't relate to Hashem's sense of being of it. But he goes even further. So we actually can initiate a connection to Hashem. Not only can we be a receptacle, but we actually can initiate a connection to Hashem on that deep level. From the bottom up. And the Rebbe brings in this mimer, coming back to this mimer, he brings the story of pointing Hamagel. He said that they needed rain. It's a Mishnah and Timus, Perik, Gimel, and Timus. Mishnah Fest. He said that pointing Hamagel got up there and he started telling Hashem, I'm not moving from here, I swear by your name, I'm not moving from here until you bring rain, and the rain wasn't the right type of rain, and he said, I didn't mean that, and he's forced Hashem's hand, basically. So the end of the Mishnah is, Shalach Lei Shimon ben Shaki. Shalach Shimon ben Shaki said the message to him, don't only fighting out the word, not the case, you are fighting, the great fighting, Gizrani Alefa, and we do it. I would have put you into excommunication for forcing being put to it, to force Hashem's hand like that. What can I do for you? Shata, now there's an interesting word, mischate. What is this word mischate? You are doing something in front of Hashem. And he does what you want. I love just like a child who's doing this with his father. Now this word mischate, most of them unfortunately say it means you're acting childish. So the Rebbe says there's a certain in our being childish, small, but at the same time the child of Hashem, having this fundamental deep connection. Elsewhere the Rebbe speaks about the advantage of Inar Yisrael, being simple, being small, rather than and being great. That child, but having that essential bond, Hashem put himself into us. We're Hashem's children, we have the same DNA, so to speak. And he says, so actually, you make Hashem rejoice. The Rebbe also brings another explanation that mischate means to overcome sins, make a transformation. So when a person is simple with Hashem in this way, and he is himself, but he feels a deep essential bond to Hashem. He's a yesh, he's gashmi. It's true, but he feels this is my father. And especially if he transforms his lowness and transforms that, is able not only to, he's able to be receptacle to Hashem, he's actually able to sort of force Hashem's hand, so to speak. The Rebbe actually brings that kapitel that he started in that year, which is Pei Gimel, and he brings a pasuk, he says, Elikim al Domino. And he says, Hashem, don't be silent. Al Teferash, don't be al Tishkei, don't be mute, don't be deaf. And the Midrash says, Tzadikim tell Hashem what to do. So this is a radical thing. The Rebbe is saying this smoothly as if he's pulling this together, but he's saying we down here, because of our yeshus, because of our behavior, because of all this, we have in us the ability, when we come as a son, when we come as a child of Hashem, we have the ability to overcome all barriers and really relate to Hashem and motivate Hashem. This is actually what Hashem is looking for. Just want to suggest maybe in this kapitel also, in Kuf Aleph, we have a similar idea. We start off Ayin, which means that my help comes not from Ayin. Ayin means level beyond all levels, simplicity. And then the next thing says, Hashem. Then from reaching that simplicity, letting go on that level, then we are able to bring that ultimate truth down into the Shalfos, and then we come eventually to the point in the kapitel where it says Hashem Tzilcha. Maggid explains that Hashem Tzilcha, that Hashem does whatever you do. Like your shadow, Hashem is your shadow. What's the shadow? We usually think Hashem is your protector. He said actually means that just like a shadow, wherever you move, the shadow moves. So too, whatever you do, Hashem responds to you. So I think this is, from my point of view, this is the empowerment, the transformation that the Rebbe is showing us. We don't have to sprout wings and halos. We don't have to think that we are not physical people. We can embrace our uniqueness, our quirks, our individuality, but at the same time, we have to know what it really is. This is pious equation of Hashem's word. Hashem, this is Hashem's thing. It's Hashem's opportunity. Hashem is doing this because He's seeking a relationship with us. He's loading us with various qualities that enable us to accomplish unusual and new things. And this is for me, at least. So this is the vision of the Rebbe. This is the uplifting vision of the Rebbe. And let us go forward with that.
See the whole like this.
We have to hold on the voice about its voice tone. And somebody got to know. Very well. And you know, somebody else. Gentlemen, there are places further, somewhere around here, there are some staircases. Make yourself comfortable. We're coming a bit later. We're going to avoid welcome. Many of you we haven't seen for a long time. And it's a wonderful opportunity to meet one another from all over London and pray together. Our viewers, I acknowledge also that Shmuel Actor for his investment in choir. Not just for the choir, but for his highest behind the choir, young Amimo, one of the oldest staff in London, with his tremendous eyes for our community. And for Daniel Admon, who's putting his musical talents into coordinating this group of boys. Now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker tonight. We did before up here. But it's always a pleasure of having Mr. Hayes when he comes here and to come to lead your Mocha Mashlichus a few days before Pesach is a challenging decision, and we're very grateful for Itzi for making that effort, and I'm sure it will be worthwhile, at least for us. So, time with Itzi. L'chaim, and with Yom. I'm not sure if it's any great difficulty for me to come, but it's for my wife to during pre-Pesach preparations. So they tell a story about a fellow standing on the streets, and he sees somebody walking down the street digging a hole. There's another man standing next to him, and then once the hole has been dug, another person who since then has been standing drinking coffee begins to fill up the hole. And then they move 20 meters down the street and they do it again. One digs a hole, the other one fills up the hole. And they do this 10, 15 times. The person who's on the street watching them says, "This is very puzzling. Could you tell me what's going on?" He says, "I know it looks strange, but you have to understand, we are three brothers. And brother number one digs the hole. Brother number two puts the tree in. Brother number three," can I ask permission? Okay, you're working it out. "Brother number three puts the fills up the earth again. Just because brother number two is sick doesn't mean that we shouldn't come to work." So as a scoop that talks like the guy with ניסן, obviously we're going to dig a hole and we're going to fill it up, and we might do it again and again. But obviously the planting of the tree is very much what every citizenship Farbrengen, and especially with ניסן, is all about.
So Reb Getzel and Reb Mendel, they called me a while back asking if I could come. And I said, and Getzel said, well, maybe you need to buy stuff for Pesach. So, you know, they Shinka Lazarov for the year, Toshin and Beis, and then said people shouldn't come. So he came to Crown Heights, and Rabbi Chalikov said, what are you doing here? So he said, I'm here to buy gefilte fish for Raskin. I think Raskin sends around a video of him telling the story every year. That's the minute Yisrael, you should buy it from Raskin. So, and the way the Shulchan describes it is that by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe gave him a little smile when we said L'chaim, and he was convinced that Rabbi Chalikov had told the Rebbe the story. At least Rabbi Chalikov found it very hilarious. So I originally, when I came, I didn't need to buy anything. But Baal Shachar brought this to my fifth pallet of stuff that was meant to come with goods didn't show up. So I spent today braving the Pesach stores of Stamford Hill, buying stuff for Pesach. So Baruch Hashem, it worked out well. Tafshin Ben Beis, for me personally, is the first time that I recall Yud Aleph Nisan being, it was and I actually remember I was sitting in this room the 3 weeks before when the Rebbe said the Sitch, I think it was to this Canaan, and the Rebbe said that people should not go. What I remember was that the Rebbe saying people should not go, and immediately afterwards, a number of people, some of them might actually be here, explaining that they were going to be going anyway. And so different people did go, but I will say, and I just thought about this week, that because the Rebbe said that people should not go, so there was a tremendous shurim here, which I, at the young age of 10 years old, would probably not have gone to New York without him. There was a tremendous shurim here, and the Rebbe's Farbrengen was broadcasted here live for the first time by satellite. There must have been 500 or 600 people here in Beis Lubavitch that night. And I don't, if the Rebbe had not said the Bishra, probably that would not have happened. But I personally benefited tremendously. That Farbrengen remains with me. That just the whole, what should we say, this whole thing of the 2:30 in the night was something that we did for every Farbrengen, but the 2:30 in the night with 500 people there. I remember it was like daytime. Hundreds and hundreds of people living in the darkness. So today we are 40 years after the 80th birthday of the Rebbe, 50 years after the Shnas HaShivim, 120 years. And on the one hand, 120 years, a tremendous number of shleimus. But I have to be honest, I hope I won't get thrown out if I say this, but 120 is like a scary number. And the truth be told is that if you listen to the Rebbe's Farbrengen of Cheshvan, where the Rebbe talks about 120, the Rebbe says that 120 is like a faraway thing. The Rebbe talks about Dvora, נחama, and Ruslan, and there's this idea that how do you connect to an idea that's 120? But the Rebbe gives, shall we say, the problem with the solution, and saying that with the Ismastos, with sitting down, the Rebbe describes sitting down in a zimmer, with giving it that time. Giving it the time that is required to think about our connection and how real and relevant it is for us, we'll be able to turn the 120 into, instead of it being a scary number, a shleimus and a tremendous chizuk in our discussions and our connection. I will say, somebody just told me this earlier today that there was a tzefel. They saw that the Rebbe says that the first time in the Torah that mentions 120 years, where is that? Many places, okay, for the first time. And the Bereshit, exactly, by the Mabul. Right, somebody say, who gets the prize? Okay, good, somebody's away. Good. The first time is by the Mabul. That the 120 counteracts the Mabul, and I think that's very relevant. Unfortunately, there's a Mabul. We live in a world of struggles. Maybe in England, you feel a little bit further from it. In mainland Europe, you feel a little bit closer to it. And it's a lot of struggles. There's on the Hoffman that the 120 years of the Rebbe is able to subside the marble and bring the shalom that is required in the world. You can say l'chaim to that. L'chaim. Now, when Moshe Rabbeinu, about who it says, when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, it says, and what does it say? Rashi says, the whole house was full of light. And there's a sikha where the Rebbe describes that imagine Moshe Ben Amram, Amram, the Nasi Hador, that his house should get even more light by Moshe Rabbeinu, tremendous God. The Rebbe brings a new light into our door, into our generations, a new perspective. The Rebbe's perspective was to be able to see the light where there's darkness. And that's why, whilst the very first Maimah of the Rebbe, a few short years after the Holocaust, the Rebbe starts off, Bosim Lagani. The world is not a jungle. The world is not barefoot and flusha. The world is a Gani, Gmuni, the garden of Hashem. Nobody else saw the world as a garden. Everybody else sees the world as a terrible place, and we have to save ourselves. But the Rebbe said, no, the entire world is actually Gani and Gmuni. And in that sense, you can see in countless examples, which I'm going to bring a few, I hope you'll bear with me, countless examples of the Rebbe's way of looking at something, as Rabbi Simon mentioned before, looking at what should be a problem and instead turning it on its head and seeing it as being the solution. Elizabeth Shabbat started growing a beard. Rabbi Legal Shapiro, who's my Rosh Hashiva for a couple of years, told me this story. And Rabbi Legal Shapiro had a shaykhus with him. And the Rosh Hashiva made fun of the bacher and said, you look like a hippie. And Rabbi Legal Shapiro was he's a very interesting person, like a little bit, on the one hand, very respectful, but at the same time, he said to the bacher, tell them about this. And the Rebbe responded to the bacher, tell the Rosh Hashiva that the Yiddish hippie that's growing his beard is also not over on the Issa of not like Sakif Thank you, Rabbi. He does all my questions. I figured we'll leave some here for now. So now that's not just, I don't know if you're allowed to use this word, but it's not just a acute response. This is the evidence. The Rebbe looks at what everybody else sees as a hippie Meshugana, and the Rebbe sees here's a yid, but say, on the bird, and he's being at 7 on the kid for that yid. He looks like a Jew. Right? There was a famous fellow that came to the Rebbe and said the hippies, they're breaking all boundaries. The Rebbe said, no, the hippies, they're not happy with the politics of the world that they live in. They want to turn things around. And in that sense, it's not just justifying them, it's actually the Rebbe saying, look at the positive with it. Right? And then there are various stories that are, shall we say, Chabad stories that we get with our mother's milk of the group of Israeli soldiers who come to the Rebbe and they're handicapped and everybody's calling them, what were they calling them? Nechei Sahal, and the Rebbe, the Rebbe says, oh, what do you mean Nechei Sahal? And the Rebbe is not saying it, again, because it's a nice thing to say. The Rebbe is saying it because the Rebbe is able to see with the gift of the Rebbe that he's able to see this perspective. He's able to see the art that is within the choshech, and he's able to see how, in some senses, the choshech itself is really an art. There was a group of women who participated in the Sheikh Chabad event, and they were in the airport, and it was Friday morning, and the plane was not taking off, and they called to the Rebbe's office, and they said, please tell the Rebbe that we're stuck in Detroit, I think it was. We're stuck in Detroit. And the Rebbe's response was, what's made stuck? What does stuck mean? So the woman at first thought that the Rebbe didn't know what the word stuck it means. They said, no, I don't mean that. I mean, what does it mean that you're stuck? You're not stuck. You're in an opportunity. The fact that your plane is stopped and you're in snow, whatever it is, and you're not able to travel, that's because Hashem has put you in a certain situation, and therefore make use of it, find that that is there. Now this perspective, which is a perspective of finding the of finding the responsibility, of finding what needs to be done, of finding our role, is something which the Rebbe imparted to the Chassidim and the Rebbe imparted to the world. And that's why every single Jewish organization in the world, from the gamut of Haredi through to Reconstructionist, Reform, Conservative, whatever it's called, has all asked themselves the same question: how do we imitate Chabad? And they're not sure. They don't know if they have to do this or they have to do that. But they want to know, how do we imitate Chabad? And they all ask the same question. The answer we know is because we have to have this perspective. And it's not about doing this chachmalach or that chachmalach, but it's about having a totally different a totally different attitude, a totally different perspective of seeing the kedusha in things. And in that sense, when one is connected with another person, seeing the that is in them, and in that sense, especially the Yisrael that the Rebbe teaches us. But now, because of this, while the rest of the world said, develop this or develop shokol, and things look terrible, the Rebbe says, the world is getting ready for Mashiach. We're just a few steps away from coming to Mashiach. Medafot who puts in the knetler. And then the Rebbe said, we've already rushed, we've polished all the buttons. I can say it in Danish, I just don't know the English one. Right? The Rebbe said, we polished all the buttons. Then the Rebbe said, Mashiach is coming. Then the Rebbe said, Mashiach is here. We just have to open up our eyes. And as the Rebbe says, the Goyla that we are in, we just need to bring in the light. And we'll turn the Goyla into Gula. And this is the perspective that the Rebbe has and the Rebbe wants us to be able to have, not because this is in hope or it's a right thing to believe, but because this is the endless, because this is the truth. And that's why the Rebbe would stand by Farbrengen and say, that Mashiach is going to come right now before Mincha, because the Rebbe saw the way the world is with this tremendous or waiting to be revealed. So Shimon Peres, also Shalom, he came to visit the Rebbe. I don't remember in what capacity. And after he came out, he was, on the one hand, he was very impressed, and it's a little bit not Siddish what he said, so you'll bear with me. And he came out and he said, the Rebbe is so smart, but in Hebrew it says, "Humami kamo sapta," meaning a great mechanism. That was what Shimon Peres was saying is that he found somebody who was very smart, but also not cynical. And that to him, he had difficulty, because sometimes being smart and being cynical sometimes can go together. And that was something that he couldn't understand how or cynical or skeptical. And the cynicism and skepticism, these were two things that the Rebbe was totally foreign. And in that sense, the emunah, the tremendous emunah that the Rebbe had, of course, in Hashem, but at the same time in people, in Toy, in Kedusha, in a Yid, in the power of an individual thing that a person can do. This is something that was tremendously powerful. So the Lag BaOmer parade in Tashim and Zion, which was also on satellite, I also watched it here in this room. Although that part was not on the satellite, but at the end of the parade, the Rebbe turns to Rabbi J.J. Hecht on his way out. The Rebbe begins singing, and then the Rebbe turns, and it's on the video. It's a very famous interaction where the Rebbe turns to J.J. Hecht, and J.J. had been a little bit, it seems a little bit more about the parade and the organization of the parade, and he says to J.J., this from the Marashayra. And JJ says, yeah, the Rebbe hat me Areis geschleppt. And the Rebbe says, Areis geschleppt. Aufgehoben. And in so many ways, the way the Rebbe interacts with us is not through our h'tשפ, but through our Farbrengen. So there was a fellow in France who decided that he wanted to marry a non-Jewish woman, and the shliach in Lyon, said to him, "You can't." He'd been to the Rebbe before this person. He said, "You have to go to the Rebbe in order to ask the Rebbe if this is okay." And he goes to the Rebbe and he asks the Rebbe two questions. The one is that being that there's a thing called Jewish post, right? If somebody travels, somebody gives them letters. So Rabbi Gurevich gave him a pile of letters. He says the first thing is, his second question was, I don't want the people that I'm bringing their letters to the Rebbe to be affected that by my question, that their bracha should miss out, because my question is a little bit chutzpahdik. And his first question was, why does the Torah mix into my private life and say that who I should or shouldn't marry? And so the fellow comes to New York with this letter. Whatever, he gets into a little bit of a disagreement with Label Grona, if he couldn't give it. And in the end, he gives it to the Rebbe in the hand. And 15 minutes later, Label Grona comes running out. Where is this fellow? You have an answer from the Rebbe. And the answer is two parts. So the first part, the Rebbe answers the second question. His point was that maybe the people who he had brought their letters, that their bracha should not be affected because of this question. And the Rebbe said, no Jew is ever not able to have a bracha. Every Jew gets a bracha, always. And regarding the first question, the Rebbe says this is a terrible thing, meaning regarding marrying a non-Jew. If you want the best, obviously one should not allow that to happen, and it shouldn't happen. He goes back to France, and he does not reconnect with the shliach, and unfortunately he intends on marrying. And then a few months later, he shows up at the shliach's door, and he says, I'm ready to reconnect to Yiddishkeit. And the short story was that when they've been at the actual wedding, at the actual ceremony in the town hall, and the guy said, do you accept the marriage? The guy said, yes. Do you? And they say, yes. So he said, do you accept me? He said, no. So the guy says again, do you accept me? No. No. Everyone will be screaming and shouting, what do you mean, no? And he realizes that if he's not going to get out of that quickly, he's probably going to have a black eye plus. He picks himself up, he runs out, and then he left France, and he left the country, and when he comes back to ship, this is the first time. He said, why did I say no? So I'll tell you why I said no. He said, I intended to say yes. I push it at that moment. The Rebbe standing there, telling me that this is a bad thing to do, was what was in front of my eyes. I couldn't say yes. I had to say no. I don't know if that classifies as h'tשפ or Farbrengen, maybe a combination of both of them. But that's an example of whatever Farbrengen. In Copenhagen, Denmark, 7 years ago, on a Shabbos afternoon, there was a terrorist attack. It was a free speech event that was taking place, and two policemen were wounded, and one man was killed. And later on that evening, there was a bas mitzvah, good friends of ours. And actually, originally the bas mitzvah was meant to be in the Chabad house. It was the week of the Kinnis HaShulchan, so therefore my wife was not there, so we said we wouldn't be able to do it. So they did it in the Jewish Community Center. And the streets of Copenhagen were very tense because the terrorists were still on the loose. For the first time ever, I saw Danish police carrying machine guns. Every policeman on the street was carrying a machine gun. There was policemen standing outside the community center. And the couple who were making the bas mitzvah, who was their daughter, they were at the beginning, they were emotional, because they said maybe we should cancel it, maybe we should this. They were quite upset in a sense that it was in such a tense atmosphere. So I went over to them and I said that when I got married, the day before our wedding, my wife's great aunt passed away, which caused that my wife's grandmother was not able to be present at the wedding. It was obviously like a shared an effect to the simcha. And somebody one of the uncles or whatever read under the chuppah a letter from the Rebbe that addresses this sort of situation. And I didn't remember where the letter was, at the moment. And it's a letter where the Rebbe says the fact that you're having a simcha after such a darkness shows how important the simcha is and how effective it is and how special it is. So as they were very warmed by these words, I left the bas mitzvah at about 12:20. There was a big tall guy, Dan, security guard, Jewish guy, and he walked me outside to my car. I said, Dan, why are you standing outside? Go inside. You don't get paid to get shot at. He said, no, we have to be proactive. Tragically, 20 minutes later, terrorists came and killed him. One in front. Obviously, great havoc. The Chabad house, but on lockdown, and this, the concern that the terrorist was still on the loose. Was on the loose for another 5 hours. My wife was at the Kinnis HaShulchan, heard the terrorist attack in Copenhagen. It was very quite dramatic. So the next, obviously, that night they were the whole anyone that was left at the bas mitzvah, they had to hide in the basement, and then they were taken out, and then they were taken to the police station. So the next night, the husband of the family that had made the bas mitzvah, you can imagine now they're feeling that they made a bas mitzvah, like one this person, a friend of all of ours was killed. He called me and he said, listen, the letter that you told me, it's helping us, but we're going under over here. This is not so somebody had sent me, there's a letter from the Rebbe about someone that made Nachma, and somebody passed away, Nachma, and the Rebbe explains how that person, their time had come, and the fact that they passed away, Nachma was a bracha for them. And I shared this letter. And as he told me, and she told me, that this letter is what kept their health, kept their sanity, I'm not going to say that it kept their spirits up, because it was obviously a very difficult time. But I will say, Baruch Hashem, a number of years later, this family has made Aliyah, and actually, our latest, we had a conversation yesterday, but our latest conversation before that was he was trying to work out a technique how to break it to his wife that he's now wearing a kapota every Shabbos, so that Baruch Hashem, they're moving forward in Yiddishkeit. But for me, that is an example. People that have not meet the Rebbe, not necessarily consider themselves part-time Lubavitchers, but that the Rebbe's letter, the Rebbe's words, the Rebbe's light, the Rebbe's wisdom is able to help them, bring them forward in this situation. If I may tell a slightly humorous, shall we say, description of sometimes people who are so, shall we say, carried away with their own reality that they have great difficulty seeing the broader picture. The Israeli ambassador in Denmark, I hope it's not live on the Facebook or whatever, don't want to create a diplomatic crisis, Anyway, the Israeli ambassador in Denmark, not the one that's now, was a while back. He was speaking at one of our events, and he said, I met the Rebbe. Oh, wonderful, very nice. We went to dollars. She was with Bibi. We went to dollars. He said, but I didn't take $1. I said, why didn't you take $1? He says, because I'm an official. I'm not allowed to take money. So after he finished his speech, I was a little more polite than this, but I said to him, I didn't say shit, but I said, Mr. Messer, why do you think that Rebbe gave money? $1. He said, I don't know. I said, that Rebbe gave it for you to give to somebody else. It was actually not about you. But you were so carried away with your position and your this that you couldn't take the $1. So that to me was an example, no anti-ambassador sentiments, but an example of a person that's so caught up in their little kleinigkeit that they're not able to do what they're supposed to be doing. Sometimes I will add our attempt to update again, to inspire somebody in the Rebbe's, as the Rebbe's. Sometimes it can go a little bit wrong. And I apologize, I told this story before in this school. but not everybody that was here was there at that time. They do say, by the way, about a story you can tell. One rabbi once asked another rabbi, how often can you tell the same word? He said a story you can do once every year and a vatera every 6 months. A story once a year and a joke every 6 months. And vatera you can do twice in the same speech. That's okay also. So I got an email once from a guy, and he says, I'm coming to Copenhagen, I'm stopping by, I need to go to the mikveh. I say, man, needs to go to the mikveh. A bocher needs to go to the mikveh. Very nice, what time are you coming? I'll be coming at 9:30 in the morning, my plane is landing, I'll take a train, blah, 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 blah. No problem, I'm not going to be there, so I told my wife, I told the cleaner, I told the secretary, there's going to be somebody coming, make sure there's a towel and there's a key, and show you where the mikveh is. The mikveh you have to like go through a little bit. Say that, not 9:30, 9:45, the doorbell rings, somebody's there. Oh, you want to go to the mikveh? Okay. We take him into the mikveh. And the truth he told us, he was a little modern looking, right? You know, there's a way people look, right? He was a little modern looking, and I was like kind of impressed that this fellow wanted to go to the mikveh. Anyway, he went to the mikveh, and then when it came out, I said, "You want to have a cup of tea?" Well, no, I have to go back to the airport. I don't have so much time. Anyway, a few hours later, we got an email from the guy who wanted to go to the mikveh. He was still in the airport. This guy was somebody who we put in the mikveh, but you know. So sometimes we can get a little over enthusiastic. But as Yosef Weinberg of the Shalom, who put a letter by the Rebbe's door expecting one of the maskirim to bringing it in, said, and the letter fell down. And the Rebbe bent down and lifted it up. And he apologized that the Rebbe had to bend down and lift it up. And the Rebbe responded, "Das is my need, that's what I'm about." Who's able to lift up the other person, and each and every one of us are a part of that. Being aufgehoben by the Rebbe, and at the same time, aufheben andere. When we talk about Moshe Rabbeinu, so at the beginning of the slide, Moshe Rabbeinu, it says that the whole house is filled with light. And then there's the next step where it says that Moshe Rabbeinu goes out. He sees their suffering, and he sees that there is no other person. There was somebody that once asked him, "Why do you get involved in such controversial topics when you know that it gives bad PR to Chabad?" I don't know which topic he's referring to, but I imagine probably you, famous artist. And the Rebbe says, "I look Kienish, and there's nobody else to do it, and therefore I realize that I'm the one that has to do it." And then the Rebbe added, "That's something you learn to share. That's something that I learned from my father-in-law," instead of the Rebbe saying that I know the Kienish. But in so many ways, the Rebbe took of all of us and made us Kienish. There is no one else. We become the ish. The Rebbe takes each and every one of us and makes us a person that has the ability to upave and to lift up another person. Mitzvah Yemaledes. The Rebbe made the Mitzvah Yemaledes. For anybody that lives and interacts with non-Lubavitcher crowds, you might have heard them say, "Oh, the only Yemaledes in the Torah is Torah." That's what Yemaledes is Torah. Otherwise, the Torah. So when the Rebbe did speak about Yemaledes, I think the Munachim, the Rebbe mentioned the Yerushalmi, where it talks about the Amolek, that they would use people whose birthday was the Mazolei Goyber, right? But the Rebbe came with this idea actually after the Rebbe passed away about Mitzvah Yemaledes, and Yemaledes is telling what? Somebody said before that a Mashkiach had said that he was a behemoth, right? That's one looks on, right? My Mashkiach didn't tell me he was a behemoth. We might have told the Mashkiach that he was a behemoth. But Baruch Hashem, good Mashkiach. But in that sense, the Mitzvah Yemaledes is the Rebbe telling each and every one of us how special, how important, how powerful, and therefore how much each and every one of us has to do. Have you heard of a Shaddai? Shluchad Rachmana. Those were the shluchim of the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe Rasha. These were people that davened ba'avega, right? The Shmuel Duvid Reichik used to come to yeshiva. He would daven until 1 o'clock in the morning. 1 o'clock, not in the morning. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then he would go around and raise money. I think he was down at the davening and the raising money was also not so bad. But he used, so that was a shadam. But what happened today? The Rebbe told every person, Kol ha'retza lichlas Hashem can be a shliach. And it's not a formal, official shliach. The Rebbe had another term, a tankist. What is a tankist? A tankist is a person that goes outside. I once went to the Rebbe when the Rebbe was giving out to the tankistas. No, the Rebbe stopped me. Just a tankist? Are you actually a tankist? And in that sense, each and every one of us has been given that ability. The Hashocha El-Yena has brought that right now, close to the time of the 120th birthday, that the world has seen the way people that we all know, Shluchim of the Rebbe in Ukraine, who have stood b'mesiras nefesh. I'm not going to say mamash, but they have stood in a state of b'mesiras nefesh in order to be there for the people. There's a shliach, and I know there are some shluchim here from the community that are in Ukraine, have gone back. I was sitting 2 nights ago at a meeting of the Jewish community of Copenhagen about the Ukrainian refugees, and I told them that the shluchim in Ukraine some had left, and then some had gone back, and they were open eyes like this, totally stunned that this is possible. The shliach in Ukraine, in Sumy, Rabbi Levitansky, so when he was there for many years, for many years. And at a certain point, he was trying to get his papers in order, his permanent residence. And the guy in the office says, I'm not giving you permanent residence. Says, why not? Says, I'm looking at you. You're from California. Your wife is from South Africa. You have family there. You have things, this, that, that. You're one of two things. You're either a spy or you're crazy. What are you doing here in Sweden? And the spies we don't need, and crazies we have enough. I think at the end of it, when we moved to Copenhagen, so the Jewish community said we're going to have a meeting. So they had a meeting with us. We want to tell them how normal we are, and they want to find out how. So at one point, the president of the community says, I have a question. He says, what is your training? My training is, we have had interactive workshops of social counseling. What I mean is that the children that came into the yeshiva, we chatted with it, right? And we have had on-hand training of synagogue pastoral studies that here in the Shabbos, I ran after the kids that were running around. And we have had, I gave them a whole thing training, and I trained in this school and Holocaust, rabbinical studies in America, whatever. I gave them a thing. I don't want to sound like, I have no training. So I gave them the whole thing training. Anyway, so after the meeting, a few weeks later, he writes a report, the chairman of the community, an internal report to send around to the So we met the Chabad couple, and the Chabad couple, they're very sweet, they're very nice, they come across very friendly, but you've got to be very, very careful. These guys are highly, highly trained to crack into our community and society. So at first, I had the exact same reaction. I was like, come, I'll take your visit to Beis Rivka, and I'll tell you this, you'll see what sort of training this is. But then after I realized, the guy was 100% right. We have a training of the Rebbe. We have a training as the Rebbe hat that the Rebbe hat and the Rebbe gave us the ability to aufheben andere. And this is taka, a priceless training. And in that sense, it's a training that the Rebbe has given every single one of his Chassidim, the Holkim, the Archaisos, those that go in the Rebbe's way. Now, at the end of the Torah, in Parshas V'Zeh Samrocha, then Meir V'Esrim Shona, it says about Moshe Rabbeinu, Leichose Einoi, Leinoch Leich. And Leichosa Eina means, or I'm going to a little liberal in the interpretation. The Rebbe's vision is very much there. The Rebbe's perspective has impacted so much of the world, and hopefully has also impacted and affected us. But then there's the Loinoch Leicha. Thank you very much. I knew I would get some of it wrong. It's in Hotel, whoever. Loinoch Leicha. That is, there's the moisture, the lachuchis. The Rebbe's vision, that comes from the Rebbe. The lachuchis, how that lives within us, that comes from us. That's our idea. That's what we have to do. And that's why the post is not that post, the next post immediately continues the Yeshua ben Nun. The Yeshua ben Nun, or as the Rebbe put it, the Moshe Rabbeinu Shebakol Echad Echad. I only heard the Rebbe say this one time. Maybe there were other times also. One time, 2 months before Chazayam, the Rebbe said the Moshe Rabbeinu Shebakol Echad Echad. Our connection to the Rebbe, and at the same time, our lachuchis and chayis that connects us to the Rebbe, in that sense, gives us the ability to go forward. That the 120 years is not something scary, but it's something real, it's something relevant, it's something that impacts us, and something that inspires us and drives us forward. And whether we ourselves were present at the Rebbe's sitters, or we have learned sitters, or Mamardim, or seen videos, or learned Ikras, so all of the various different ways that we are able to connect. And I recall sitting in Yeshiva Gdela in Kingsley Way in my pajamas. I've not found the sitter, and the Rebbe was saying the sitter was in, I believe, the winter of Tafshin Nun, and the Rebbe said that a vort, very quick vort. And the Rebbe said to the Zoldus, Rebbe said something, and I don't remember what it was. I apologize, it was 32 years ago, so I don't remember. But then the Rebbe said, I remember the pajamas, and then the Rebbe said, the Zoldus, give it gathering, so people said in Nishtar. And then the Rebbe said, meaning give it over to those that are not here. And then the Rebbe said, there are those that are here, but they're not here. And then there are those that are not here, but they're here. Each and every one of us has the ability, whether we were there or not there, to have the ability to be here, to be connected with the Rebbe, and to be as the Rebbe's own favorite and lift us up, and through us, the Rebbe's light should reach the world around us. And I'll conclude with a little story. Anecdote. Tafshin Memtes, 1989, I traveled to the Rebbe for the first time for Yudalef Nissen. And I have to be honest, there was not a lot of people that had traveled there. Everyone was like, did you get a pace? I it wasn't like a round number. And it wasn't like a big, it wasn't, I remember like there was a few doctrine that had come in, some of them stayed, but there Yudalef Nissen. Now, after my day, if I remember correctly, Yudalef Nissen was on Sunday. And so it was Motzei Shabbos. And then Sunday night, between Mincha and Ma'ariv, the Rebbe turned around to Ladle and told someone to Ladle. And he went out. And when he did, he came back from the Rebbe's room. The Rebbe instructed him to go to his room and bring back a box. And he brought a box. He opened the box. And you could see it was a yellow thing. Now, I'll tell you what it was. It was Kushas Avos. The guy next to me says, oh, Hagodas. What happens? And then the Rebbe starts giving out the Kushas Avos. Now, I have to be honest. I was not, I'd been to New York, Tishrei, and at that time, place I'd been once this. So as a bocher, I wasn't like familiar with exactly what was going on at 7. I wasn't like the one that knew exactly what was going on. So I didn't realize that there was only about 200-300 of these Kushas Avos. I didn't get into my mind. The rest of 7 did realize. And so immediately everybody began pushing very intensely to get the Kushas Avos Yisrael. As the joke went afterwards, whoever got the Kushas Avos Yisrael needed it. So I also was swept forward. I also pushed forward. But I decided that I'm not going to take the good shots of stone now. As I said, I had no idea what was going on. I'm going to stand behind the Rebbe and watch the Rebbe give it out. And then at the end, I'll get a bit of an idiot. But that's, anyway, so I stood behind the Rebbe, watching the Rebbe giving it out. And the Rebbe, in his perhaps great Abbas Yisrael, or maybe because he wanted people to stop squeezing him, turned around, passed the Kuntres Abbas Yisrael. First, the people next to me had all gotten ready. But to me, passed me a Kuntres Abbas Yisrael, actually like kind of through the ground, and was basically saying, no, move away. That was like that was indication, and I realized now it's time to move away. And Baruch Hashem, I got the Kuntres Abbas Yisrael. But I will say, when thinking about this, and obviously the words and actions of the Rebbe are everlasting, that each and every one of us is in some way in this situation. We don't quite know what's going on, but the Rebbe turns around towards us. The Rebbe hands us a kuntres, which is a kuntres of Torah, a kuntres of Valas Yisrael, a kuntres of Shlichus, and tells us, go give it over to others. And I think each and every one of us, Yudal Nisan, and every single day, we have the power to give this over to ourselves and through that to others. L'chaim, l'chaim. Assignment.
Watch the video.
And after that, we'll bring together the tables and Farbrengen.
You have a chance. And the video is 6 minutes.
Inside the ground bench.
Oh, das ist nicht.
I've got all the formal Farbrengen, and now the h'tשפ, the informal Farbrengen, the h'tשפ. And before you go to the next Farbrengen, I love there was highly recommended that for tomorrow evening, and this is to be carried on for several times a year, come together to watch Farbrengen and Rebbe. But tomorrow evening there will be a screening of the Farbrengen and now Krishna. That will be no screening in the road street, which is the Yeshiva on 1117 Finchley Road, and that's at 7:30 p.m. And in Stamford Hill here, at 8:45 tomorrow evening, there will be a 5-minute refreshment service.
Marry outside.